wisdom, stand aright, listen to the Holy Gospel. Peace be with all.
And with your spirit.
A reading of the Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew.
Glory be to you. O Lord, glory be to you.
Let us be attentive. At that time when Jesus departed from there, two blind men followed him, crying out and saying, Son of David, have mercy on us. And when he had come into the house, the blind men came to him, and Jesus said to them, Do you believe that I am able to do this? They said to him, Yes, Lord. Then he touched their eyes, saying, According to your faith, let it be to you. And their eyes were opened. And Jesus sternly warned them, saying, See that no one knows it. But when they had departed, they spread the news about him in all that country. As they went out, behold, they brought to him a man mute and demon-possessed. And when the demon was cast out, the mute spoke, and the multitudes marveled, saying, It was never seen like this in Israel. But the Pharisees said, He casts out demons by the ruler of the demons. Then Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every sickness and every disease among the people.
Glory be to you. O Lord, glory be to you.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Slava Jesus Christu. Glory be to Jesus Christ. Brothers and sisters, maybe you've read the Chronicles of Narnia, or at least you've heard of them. The story of the four Pevensies who discover a magical land that exists inside of a wardrobe. Or better put, they found a doorway into another world, the magical land of Narnia, where they have another Christ figure, Aslan, the king of the beasts, a lion, who is there, who is the Christ figure of that land. I wanted to draw your attention to the creation of this land as told in the prequel to the first book. There's The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was the one that C.S. Lewis wrote first, but then he went back and he wrote this story called The Magician's Nephew, which is all about the creation of Narnia, how it came to be. And the nephew is the nephew of the evil uncle, Uncle Andrew, who is very interested in this magical land because he's looking for an opportunity to sell some of the things that it produces. He is someone who is a coward and someone who, in fact, tricks his own nephew into going and doing the dirty work of exploring this magical land instead of he himself going. We have at this point in the story the creation of this kingdom. We have the lion, Aslan, singing Narnia into existence. Now, we have to, when we read this part, remember the creation of our world, in fact, because we remember at every Pascha, at every Easter, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And this world was created through God's voice, through God's speaking. Let there be light, and there was light. And there was, and throughout all of the different creation elements, it is our Lord who is speaking the world into existence. Well, here we have the lion Aslan singing the world of Narnia into existence. But this is how Uncle Andrew interprets what is going on here. It's told from his point of view. So when you hear the he, it's the evil Uncle Andrew it's referring to. When the great moment came and the beast spoke, he missed the whole point for a rather interesting reason. When the lion had first begun singing long ago, when it was still quite dark, he had realized that the noise was a song, and he had disliked the song very much. It made him think and feel things he did not want to think and feel. Then when the sun rose, and he saw that the singer was a lion, only a lion, as he said to himself, he tried his hardest to make himself believe it wasn't singing and never had been singing, only roaring as any lion might in a zoo in our own world. Of course, it can't really have been singing, he thought. I must have imagined it. I've been letting my nerves get out of order. Who ever heard of a lion singing? And the longer and more beautiful the lion sang, the harder Uncle Andrew tried to make himself believe that he could hear nothing but roaring. Now, the trouble about trying to make yourself stupider than you really are is that you very often succeed. Uncle Andrew did. He soon he heard nothing but roaring in Aslan's song. Soon he couldn't have heard anything else, even if he had wanted to. And when at last the lion spoke and said, "Narnia, awake," he didn't hear any words. He only heard a snarl. And when the beasts spoke in answer, he heard only barkings, growlings, bayings, and howlings. Isn't that true, brothers and sisters? It is something to be willfully blind, and something even worse, that when we decide to go down that road of refusing to see what is in front of us, we can taint our vision generally, so that it doesn't matter how evident things are in front of us, we simply cannot see it. Well, brothers and sisters, there are blind men in our gospel today, but they're not the ones we might consider on first reading. How do we hear the story? How does the story come to us? Two blind men come to our Lord and say, "Son of David, have mercy on us." Now, it's not a surprise that both of them would come together in a society where you don't have social security networks, you don't have the ability to have any recourse to sort of social programs. These two men need one another in a desperate way that we can't even imagine, simply for their living. They are working together in order to survive. So they come to our Lord and call him Son of David. Now that doesn't mean too much to us. We've heard that saying before, but to them, it's a big deal. To call someone the Son of David means something. And it means that the long-awaited person, the person who is going to be on David's throne throughout the centuries, the one who is the rightful king, had arrived. They are calling Jesus the Messiah, the long-awaited Messiah. And to call someone the Son of David in the middle of occupied Roman territory was risky business. And that's why our Lord and the disciples have to bring them inside, right? They have to hush them up immediately. They bring them into the house of Capernaum, and there our Lord says, he asks them, "Do you believe that I can do this? Do you have faith that I can do this?" And their answer is yes, and the evidence of that yes is granted by the fact that they can see. Brothers and sisters, they're not the blind men that I'm talking about. They're not even the blind men that St. Matthew is talking about in this gospel. Because all we have to do is read a little bit further. We see that our Lord heals a mute man, a demon-possessed man who was mute. And then he comes to the Pharisees, who after witnessing all of these incredible miracles, after seeing these incredible works of power, say instead that it is not from the Lord that this man is doing these things, but that he's in league with Satan. He is casting out demons through the power of the devil. Brothers and sisters, these are the blind men. These are the men who have waited their entire lives to see the Messiah, who have awaited his coming, and yet, despite all the evidence, refuse to see it. They are like Uncle Andrew, who have become willfully blind their decision not to see. We know it gets worse, brothers and sisters. We know that our Lord will say it doesn't matter if someone is raised from the dead. There are people that won't believe. We know that despite the fact that Lazarus was raised from the dead, it was decided that he would be put to death as well. An attempt would be made in order to silence him. Brothers and sisters, how is it that we avoid the slippery slope, the temptation of becoming willfully blind? How is it that we can take courage and be able to see what is right before our very eyes? Well, I'll give you a couple suggestions. Number one, I've mentioned it before, but I will mention it again. Frequent confession. Frequent confession. When you have made the decision to look into your heart, to practice looking into your heart on a regular basis, it gets easier with every attempt. When we are willing to take a look and see what's in here first, to truly bring it before the Lord, it gets easier and easier to be able to see those things. We may not like seeing them. We don't like seeing them, obviously. But it becomes easier to see. And it becomes easier to bring them forth and to ask the Lord's forgiveness. We can learn to yell louder, as these men do. Son of David, have mercy. So that's number one. But the one that I would like to focus on today is the place of friendship. The place of true friendship in the spiritual life. There is a great lie, brothers and sisters, out there, that your faith is a private matter. And that is a lie. It's absolutely false. Your faith is not a private matter and has never been a private matter. Your faith is a personal matter. Now that's a bit of a different statement. We have to have a personal relationship with the Lord. Our Lord is not some giant battery fueling the universe, but he is in fact a person. He has a personality, and he wants to have a personal relationship with you. But that does not mean, brothers and sisters, that we are in this alone, that our faith is a private matter. Our faith has always been a public matter, and it always will be a public matter. And where it starts is with friendships. I remember that when I was teaching in high school, I used to tell my students who were very concerned with their friendships at that time, obviously, that I hoped they had some friends who were willing to kick their butt. That's the way I said it. And I meant it in the fact that I wish that they had friends who were willing to call them out when what they were doing was bad for them or bad for their friends. Someone who was willing to make their relationship uncomfortable in order to speak the truth to these young boys and girls, because it was essential. That was the first thing I wished for them. And the second thing I wished for them was that they themselves would be that friend for someone else. Do you, brothers and sisters, have at least one friend in the spiritual life that you are willing to hold, to keep accountable to for yourself, and also to hold accountable? Do you have someone who you can turn to in moments of temptation or discouragement? Do you have someone who you can open up to about the Lord and all the incredible things that he has done for you today and every day? That's the question for today. Because, brothers and sisters, our Lord goes from healing two blind men to healing a man who was mute, someone who couldn't speak. It would be a true tragedy if we, who are not possessed by demons, remain mute in our articulation and our witness to the Lord in our own personal friendships. If you don't have someone who you can point to with that question that I asked this morning, pray to the Lord that he reveal to you someone in your life that you can walk with side by side, someone who you can be edified by, and someone who through your witness you can be a means of edification for them. St. Paul talks about this in our epistle when he says, "We who are strong ought to bear with the failings of the weak and not to please ourselves. Let each of us please his neighbor for his good, to edify him. For Christ did not please himself. Brothers and sisters, we have been given tremendous grace in our friendships, in our freedoms, and the ability to live our faith in a public manner. Let us start living that faith in a public manner by at least identifying the friends that our Lord has put in our lives on this journey together, and having the courage not to be mute in our witness to them for their sake and for our sake. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, amen. Slava Isusu Christu. Glory be to Jesus Christ.
Glory be forever.